Hey, hey you. Come here for a second. Let me talk to you. Because, I don't think you really understand what's happening around you. Not fully. Not honestly. Not with that silent storm forming right behind your name. You walk around thinking you're just another face in the hallway, another person minding their own business. Meanwhile, you have no clue how many high-status people are observing your path, studying your choices, quietly whispering about your potential, like it's some forbidden rumor they're scared to admit is real. You think you're invisible, but the funny part, you're the only one who still believes that myth. Everyone else already sees the shift. They already feel that, unsettling energy that follows you everywhere you go. They've been tracking the way you move, the way you bounce back, the way you somehow keep going, even after life hit you with things that should have taken you out. They're confused, bothered, impressed, threatened, inspired, sometimes all at once. And here's the part you don't realize. Powerful people don't watch random individuals. They don't study people who don't matter. They don't sit in silence analyzing someone who's predictable, someone who blends in, someone who's forgettable. They watch the ones who make them nervous without even trying. They watch the ones who survived things that should have shattered them. They watch the ones who move like they know something the world doesn't. That's you, and you don't even see it. You ever notice how you walk into a room and there's this tiny shift in the air? Like conversations pause for half a second. People adjust their tone. Some straighten their backs. Others look away real quick, like they weren't staring. You just think, why is everyone so weird today? But no. It's you. It's your presence. It's that unexplainable intensity you carry without asking for it. High-level individuals, they recognize energy before titles. They recognize survival before success. They recognize strength before achievements. They recognize someone who can't be broken. And they've been observing you because you represent something they can't quantify. Something that doesn't make sense on paper. Something that shouldn't exist. But here you are. And, let's be real for a second. Your path hasn't exactly been gentle, has it? You weren't handed opportunities. You had to drag them out of life with your bare hands. You weren't given support. You had to become your own safety net. You weren't understood. You had to build your own clarity. And the irony, the same people who overlooked you are now watching you, like you're some rare phenomenon they suddenly want to understand. High-status eyes don't care about your past. They care about your trajectory. They don't care where you started. They care where you're headed. And lately, you've been moving in a direction that terrifies mediocre minds and intrigues powerful ones. You stepped into a lane that wasn't meant for you, but you made it yours anyway. You moved with purpose at times when you had no clue what you were doing, and yet somehow you still looked like you knew exactly where you were going, and that's what gets their attention. You know what else they noticed? How you never crumble publicly, how you don't rant, how you don't beg for validation, how you don't explain yourself to people who aren't capable of understanding. You just keep going. Quiet, determined, unshakable. People in high places, they admire that, they fear that, they respect that. Because they know how rare it is. They know how many people fold under pressure long before they get anywhere meaningful. And yet here you are, holding yourself together with nothing but your own willpower and that quiet fire burning behind your eyes. And, let me tell you something that might make your heart skip a beat. Some of those high-status people don't just watch you. They're waiting on you, waiting to see your next move, waiting to see if you rise or retreat, waiting to see if you become the person they think you might be, waiting to see if you realize the power you've been walking with this entire time. And you still think nobody sees you. The universe didn't hide you. It was setting the stage, preparing the tension, building the curiosity, creating the silence before the impact. Because the truth is, people at the top can feel when someone is about to break through. They can sense a shift long before it becomes visible. And you've been walking around like a living plot twist that hasn't been revealed yet. They don't know what you're capable of, but they know it's something they know you're not done. They know your story isn't regular. They know there's a chapter coming that nobody is prepared for. And here's the part that would shake you if you fully understood it. Some of them are rooting for you and some are hoping you lose, but all of them are watching your path. It's not quiet. It's not empty. It's not unnoticed. There are eyes on you from angles you can't imagine. People in rooms you've never entered, discussing you like a wild card they can't predict. Individuals with influence trying to figure out how someone like you came out of nowhere with this much intensity. And, yeah, maybe you don't feel special. Maybe you don't feel powerful. Maybe you don't see anything extraordinary about yourself. But that's exactly why they're watching. Because you're real in a world full of masks. You're raw in a world full of performances. You're unpredictable in a world full of scripts. And you're rising in a world full of people staying exactly where they are. Your path is being observed because your presence disrupts the narrative. Your name is being noted because your existence challenges expectations. Your energy is being tracked because it doesn't fit the mold. You think you're just trying to survive, but they're watching you like someone who might take over the whole board, and you still have no clue. And you don't even realize how your smallest decisions are being magnified through lenses you'll probably never see, analyzed by people who don't breathe unless everything is calculated, but you move with this raw, unpolished instinct that throws them off every single time. You ever notice how sometimes you take a step that even you didn't plan, and somehow it lands perfectly? That's the part they can't decode. High-status minds rely on patterns, formulas, predictable behavior. But you're chaos with direction. You make moves that look accidental, but hit with precision. You shift the atmosphere without saying a word. You change the tone of a room by just existing in it. And that's why they watch you like a test they can't solve. What they don't understand is that your power didn't come from comfort. It came from survival. You built your backbone in silence. You built your resilience in the dark. You built your confidence through situations that would have swallowed most people whole. And when someone has been forged like that, they don't walk the world the same way. You carry history in your eyes. You carry scars in your posture. You carry stories nobody knows. And yet everyone can feel something when you pass by. And, let's be real. You've always known deep down that you weren't meant for a simple, quiet life. Not because you wanted attention, but because life kept throwing you experiences that didn't match someone ordinary. Life kept putting you in positions where you had to step up, think differently, react quicker, grow faster. Life kept placing you on the edge over and over, until standing at the edge became normal to you. People in high places. They admire edge walkers. They respect people who didn't collapse under pressure. They pay attention to anyone who thrives in uncomfortable spaces because they know. Those are the ones who rise the highest. And here's something you probably never admitted to yourself. You intimidate people who have more status than you, but less strength, more money than you, but less resilience, more connections than you, but less purpose. They watch you because they feel something in you that they lost in themselves a long time ago. You represent hunger they no longer have. You represent courage they once needed. You represent authenticity they traded away. You shake their comfort. You bother their certainty. You disrupt their predictability, and they can't look away. You ever wonder why some people act strange around you for no reason? Why certain individuals treat you like a threat even when you're quiet? Why you feel tension in spaces where you haven't done anything wrong? It's because your presence exposes truth. Your existence forces people to confront their own limitations. Your energy reminds them of who they pretend to be. High-status people are not immune to this. In fact, they feel it even more. They can sense when someone has the potential to surpass their expectations. They can sense when someone is moving with a trajectory that doesn't match their current position. And you, well, you're moving like someone who's about to leap, not step. They're observing your path because they know once you unlock your next level, once you stop underestimating yourself, once you stop doubting your voice, once you stop shrinking your presence, you're going to move into rooms you never even thought existed. You're going to walk paths others couldn't handle. You're going to rise in ways that won't be denied. You're going to become the person your past tried to prevent you from becoming. And that's exactly why they're watching. They're studying the moment before the transformation, the moment before the shift, the moment before the breakthrough, the moment before the quiet voice in your head finally says, "Wait, everything I survived wasn't random, it was preparation." People with influence are observing you because your story isn't following the normal arc. It's building tension, like something big is about to unfold. And they can feel the weight of it, even if you can't yet. You think you're unnoticed, you think you're unimportant, you think you're just living your life, but you're actually a conversation piece, a rising variable, a developing force, a potential someone cannot categorize yet. And that's why those eyes stay locked on you, analyzing your resilience, your mistakes, your progress, your silence, your comeback, your resistance to be broken, your refusal to stay down. They're not watching you because you're small. They're watching you because something in you is getting ready to erupt. And the wild part is, you're still walking around like you're trying not to bump into anybody, like you're trying not to bother anyone, like you're trying to keep things calm and quiet, while your entire aura is screaming disruption, transformation, elevation. You ever stop midday and feel that weird pressure in your chest? Like something is shifting but you can't put your finger on it? That's not anxiety. That's your life rearranging itself behind the scenes. That's your path widening. That's the universe making space for a version of you that you haven't stepped into. Yet high-status eyes can sense that before you can. They can feel momentum in people. It's almost instinctual for them. And you're carrying momentum that doesn't match your current environment. You're carrying presence that doesn't match your current circumstances. You're carrying potential that doesn't match the level you're standing on. And they feel that mismatch. They feel it more than you do. That's why some of them stare longer than they should. That's why some keep tabs from a distance. That's why certain people with influence suddenly act cold, awkward, or overly curious around you. You're not random to them. You're not background noise. You're not invisible. You're a developing storm they've been tracking. And, let's talk about something a bit uncomfortable. Your humility sometimes blinds you to the impact you already have. You think you're just existing, but you're actually influencing. You think you're just surviving, but you're actually leading. You think you're just figuring things out, but you're actually inspiring people who will never admit it. There are people with status, connections, reputation, influence, watching the way you keep putting one foot in front of the other, even when you're exhausted, even when you're confused, even when you feel alone, even when nobody understands what you're carrying. They study how you didn't fold, how you didn't quit, how you didn't let the world break you, because they know strength when they see it. And nothing draws the attention of powerful people like someone who can't be easily broken. You know what else? They see the way you operate without a support system. They see how you move without a safety net. They see how you think for yourself. They see how you don't chase approval. They see how you don't try to impress anyone. Do you understand how rare that is? How intimidating that is? How valuable that is? People in high spaces aren't fascinated with perfection. They're fascinated with authenticity. They're fascinated with grit. They're fascinated with someone who keeps rising without permission. You're being observed because you represent a different breed of human. Someone who didn't get their confidence from praise. Someone who didn't get their strength from comfort. Someone who didn't get their clarity from being guided. Everything you have, you built internally. Everything you are, you forged in your own silence. And high-status individuals, they detect that it hits them like a quiet alarm. They can't explain it, but they notice. The way you walk, like you've survived things that don't even have names. The way you speak, like you've tasted consequences and kept your dignity. The way you look at the world, like you know exactly how dark it can get and still choose to keep going. And that, right there, is the exact reason your path is under observation. You're unpredictable, you're resilient, you're unbought. You're unmoved by superficial things. You're not controlled by fear. You're not impressed by status. And you're not dependent on anyone's validation. That makes you dangerous in the best possible way. That makes you someone to watch closely, someone to analyze, someone to understand. Some of them admire you. Some of them envy you. Some of them fear what you might become. But all of them, every single one, are paying attention. And the craziest part, you're only operating at a fraction of your real power right now. You're moving with barely 10% of what you're truly capable of. And even that tiny fraction is shaking people who are used to being unshakable. That's what they're observing. Not just who you are now, but who you're becoming without even trying yet. You ever think about how wild that is? You're not even in your final form, not even close, and you're already disrupting people who've spent years building their status, their reputation, their networks, their image. Meanwhile, you're just trying to breathe, trying to get through the day, trying to figure out your next step, and still, they watch you like an incoming event. They can't stop. You're not predictable enough to be underestimated. You're not polished enough to be dismissed. You're not weak enough to be ignored. You're not loud enough to be labeled. You're not soft enough to be controlled. You live in this strange middle space. Quiet, but powerful, humble, but intimidating, lost, but purposeful, conflicted, but aligned. People in high-status positions don't know what box to put you in, and that's why their eyes stay glued to your journey. You're the type of person who forces others to question themselves without saying a word. The type who unintentionally exposes the fragility behind other people's confidence. The type who makes even successful individuals think, why does this person have that kind of presence? What did they survive? You know how rare that is? To unsettle the settled, to intrigue the uninterested, to be watched by people who normally don't look down at anyone. That should tell you something. People with titles rarely look at people without them, unless they sense future competition or future collaboration. And the irony is, you're not competing with anyone. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're not chasing anyone's approval. You're just existing as honestly as you can, and somehow that honesty hits harder than any performance others try to put on. They see the way you keep standing back up. They see the way you don't expose your wounds. They see the way you don't make excuses. They see the way you don't pretend. They see the way you don't complain. You think you're silent, but your resilience is loud. Loud enough to echo in places you've never stepped foot in. Loud enough to catch the attention of people who once overlooked you. Loud enough to make them rethink their assumptions. And, here's the part you never thought about. Some of the people observing you don't even know why they're drawn to your path. They feel something pulling them toward your story, your presence, your energy, something they can't logically explain. It's instinct, it's intuition, it's recognition. They recognize your trajectory. They recognize your fire. They recognize your potential. They recognize the kind of person who rises slowly. Then all at once, you're not the type who explodes. You're the type who builds pressure silently until people look back and say, wait, when did they become unstoppable? That's why you're being watched, not because you're failing, not because you're lost, not because you're weak, but because something in you has been waking up, a hunger, a focus, a clarity, a shift in your posture, a sharpness in your gaze, a calmness in your chaos, a confidence that's not loud, but undeniable. People with status don't overlook that. They don't ignore that. They don't dismiss that. They follow it. They analyze it. They whisper about it. They prepare for it. Because deep down, they know. You're going to outgrow your current environment. You're going to exceed the expectations placed on you. You're going to rise higher than the people who doubted you. You're going to become someone they can't easily define. And they're watching the exact moment before all of that becomes obvious to you. And the truth is, you haven't even woken up to your own gravity yet. You're still moving like someone who's trying not to disturb the room, while the room is already rearranging itself around you. You're still talking like someone who thinks they need permission, while people with status are quietly adjusting their tone when you speak. You're still doubting yourself, while they're analyzing every micro move you make like it's data from a rare phenomenon. You ever notice how certain people suddenly act overly polite around you? Or strangely defensive? Or oddly invested in the tiniest things you do? That's not coincidence. That's not random. That's the behavioral shift people make when they sense someone rising, someone they can't quite decode, someone who carries something rare they can't replicate. You unsettle people who built their image on being unshakable. You intimidate people who built their confidence on external validation. You confuse people who thought they had you figured out, because the version of you they remember doesn't match the version of you that's emerging. And yes, High-status individuals feel that shift even stronger. They sense change like animals, sense storms. They sense momentum like predators, sense movement. They sense potential like engineers sense electricity before the lights turn on. You're walking with this quiet, heavy, rising force inside you, and you're still treating it like a secret flaw instead of a gift. Meanwhile, people with influence are studying you like someone who's about to make an unexpected leap. They've seen people like you before. The ones who start small, stay quiet, carry pain like fuel, move slowly, and